All right, Steelers fans, welcome into the bye week. Today on the Knoll Road, we have so many Steelers stories for you. Think you're going to like them. We're going to feed you during this bye week. You want Steelers news, Steelers reactions. We've got that, including why are the Pittsburgh Steelers reluctant to trade for a wide receiver? Did you see that insider report? Let's jump into that and more. Here we go.
Van to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, yeah, buddy, I'm Dawson, along with New Bear. Please, if you find value in the show, in the channel, hit that subscribe button with us and ride with us all season long. New Bear, I couldn't believe my eyes when you put this in my DMs earlier today. Andrew Filipponi was tweeting it here from Ray Fittipaldo. Was on the show and said his sources say the Steelers reluctant to trade for another wide receiver because the team's having a hard enough time getting the ball to the weapons in their offense there on the fan.
Bullshit. Sorry.
Thank you. I think you said it well. You know, I was going to go back to 6 days ago going into the weekend, Aaron Rodgers explaining why the Steelers aren't getting targets. He said, look, the guy's got to get open. I have a hard time believing that, you know, Aaron Rodgers is not getting guys the ball while they're open, and I have a hard time believing this front office would evaluate their targets and think they're good enough.
Wow. So, you know what I think is happening here? I firmly believe, Zach Kazani is out there talking about how Roman Wilson is going to play, and it's going to happen organically. And you know what I think is happening here? They are doing everything they can to try to keep the price down on anyone they might be trying to actually trade for. So, hey, yeah, Roman Wilson's going to play. Hey, yeah, we're so worried about not feeding DK, but getting targets for everyone. There aren't enough balls to go around. There's only one ball, silly talking sports guy. Bro, like, this is ridiculous. They're one of the low-key, least explosive, worst in some metrics, certainly not dominant. They're talking about it like they're the greatest show on turf. Oh man, Isaac's got to eat and Torrey's got to eat. Don't forget Ricky Prohl. You got to get the ball to Marshall. We should run it sometimes. We can't just throw it on every down. Like, stop the madness.
Yeah, they're not getting targets because the offense is broken. They're not converting third downs. They're not moving the chains. They're, putting their offensive line in terrible positions in third and long. I mean, that's been the reality up until Dublin. So, but I like that idea that they are, in effect, negotiating through the media, telling respective teams trying to trade for them, we're not desperate for a wide receiver when you know damn well they are.
The fascinating thing is like the Monday night game is what? 49ers Rams, which is always a great one. And you look at the Rams and you go, man, Puka, 10-plus catches a game. Devontae hasn't really popped off. Are you overpaid? No. Part of the reason Puka's popping off is because you have Devonta Adams. And when you go through the machinations of, okay, you know what, you got to feed Kyron Williams. Here comes Blake Corum. Insert the revolving door at the tight end room. Like, you buy that conversation because you're talking about Puka and Devontae Adams. Like, I don't want to hear it when we're talking about DK Metcalf and a bunch of other guys that we all probably think we could play against in flag football and, not have that bad of a time.
New Bear, you mentioned wide receiver coach Zach Kazani here. Here he is talking about Roman Wilson, and I know nothing would make you happier than seeing number 10 streaking up and down the football field like he's playing soccer. Here we go.
He's doing great. There's no, Roman's, in the doghouse or anything like that. That's all. Roman's doing just fine. We just happen to be pretty good in tight end and wide out and what we're doing and running the ball. But Roman he's in the mix just like all the other guys. And, obviously his role will keep elevating as the season goes on for sure. Organically, it'll just start to happen. And I just tell him when it happens, be ready, be ready for that opportunity, just like that onside kick. And he was, and he's been great.
My social media FBI training tells me that scratching the nose, putting your hand over the mouth is an attempt to deceive, I guess the word would be.
Can I just put some respect on this man's beard face? Like,
it is good.
The Brillo pad is incredible. And my goodness, I'm jealous because mine doesn't connect like that. I can't. Whew, buddy. When
Great
when
beard.
you look at what he does, fine, coach, totally fine. Not fine with anything that's coming out of his mouth. You know how I know he's lying? His lips are moving. Like when you go through the machinations of this is like a White House press briefing where you're just like picking. Okay, these three people are going to ask these three questions, and then we're out. He started with the doghouse. That's something we're all talking about because nobody else understands what could possibly be going on. It's not like he went through the preseason and dropped every ball. It's not like he fumbled in a crucial moment that lost you a game. He was injured. He didn't play. So as we go through, I'm going to do it again one more time. Hashtag Roman Wilson season. Because Zach Azani said he's going to play and it's going to happen organically. I'm buying all the jerseys in my eBay cart.
Well, I don't think there's going to be much competition, so you'll probably win all of those auctions. But who knows? Maybe Roman Wilson takes this opportunity with Calvin Austin injured and absolutely blows up. But, I mean, you got a bye week to work on this. I would hope that they are active and, they're going to have something cooked up maybe by the time we get to the weekend that we're just in perhaps the final stages of negotiations. But perhaps more interesting than that, New Bear, up next here on the Knoll Road, we go to one of our favorite Twitter accounts, Jack Sperry. Says his suspicion watching the game has been confirmed. The Steelers ran way more gap power versus Minnesota than in any of the first three games. Still ran a lot of zone stuff, and they ran their zone stuff better than they had all season long, but it was nearly a 50-50 split between zone and power. Kept Minnesota off balance. Really enjoyed Art's usage of jumbo 12 and 13. Using Spencer Anderson as a tight end as well. Minnesota's light defensive front stood no chance. And we should give some credit to Arthur Smith versus Brian Flores. We thought that would be a coaching advantage to Minnesota. And if anybody had one, it was definitely Smith. But, I think the best offenses out there are mindfully scouting themselves, being careful of what they're putting on tape as far as their tendencies, and they're alternating between gap and zone, because when you do that, it makes defensive linemen second guess what their instincts are telling them. It makes them freeze for a half second because they don't want to take themselves out of position by overcommitting. Has massive implications not only for making outside zone more effective, but for holding off the pass rush a little bit so you can get Aaron Rodgers, buy him some extra time. I think if you go back to the root of why Pittsburgh's offense was more successful against Minnesota, that has to be Exhibit A.
I don't care if you're talking about the neutral zone trap or the 3-2 zone. So New Jersey Devils to Jim Boeheim, Syracuse hoops. Like, pick your favorite sport, pick your favorite way of doing things. There's holes in every scheme. There's ways to attack every scheme. And the thing about inside-outside zone is that back in the day when Mark Schlereth, when Stink and those guys, when the original Shanahan stuff was happening, the reason that stuff was so devastating was that you could just end defensive linemen's careers on every play. And they've litigated a lot of that out of the game. And when you start talking about not being able to, like, truly, I mean, it's a clip. Like a legal clip, back of the knees, good luck, buddy. And now we're not even allowed to cut block dudes in open space. We have Schlereth on the show every week. He actually talked about last week how he was a defensive lineman in college that got clipped, tore his ACL, came back, couldn't get over it psychologically. So they're like, well, try offensive line. And obviously the rest is history. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I mean, like 26, 28 surgeries later, right? So, but the thing about the game and how much it's changed is everyone wants to talk about the Shanahan system and then the Shanahan tree, McVay, and all these young guys doing the same thing. It's actually not the same thing at all. And I started this by talking about the holes in the scheme. Any sport, any scheme, any way that you want to go in and attack a defense and how you have to do that. Like, the question used to be, like, do you have dudes? You have better dudes? You have more disruptive dudes that cannot just get their knees sawed off and aren't afraid to. Now, the way that it's played, the defender is on offense. The defender is attacking. If you run zone, they are picking a side and they're diving. They are picking a side and they are just going to say, we're going to win this rep because we're either going to get through and be Aaron Donald, or we're going to disrupt it so much that whoever is left as the cleanup crew is just going to ruin whatever it is you want to do. And so I'm an old school guy in as much as you call power, you call trap, you call anything that allows me, right? I was always a smaller lineman, but you allow me to root up in you with a head of steam, I'm going to make your life a living hell, right? I might not be
out of
able
the play
to, from a length perspective, or some of the other things that you might have over me. I get to give you a little misdirection. I get to ear hole you. I get to be explosive and short area quickness. When you're not just lining up and putting your hand in the dirt and running right, or putting your hand in the dirt and running left, and hoping the guy across from you wants to do the dance as opposed to want to cut through and make that running back pee his pants, like, it's a different deal. And what you talked about, you and I've talked a ton about what Arizona, the run scheme, and how different they are this year because all their guys are in Dallas, and what Dallas is doing with retread guys, and probably the next level they might go to with their real fast rookie, Jaden Blue. But I mean, Javonte Williams is having a career renaissance. Miles Sanders has a 50-yard run and a whole bunch of other really good tape that's going to get him paid more than 3.7 he got from Dallas this year. So when you start thinking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and why this conversation is important, it's because Gainwell and Warren are different types of runners than Caleb Johnson. And if you are going to play all three of these guys together, even Jalen versus Kenneth Gainwell, there is variance to their game. And if there is variance to your scheme, you can take advantage of their traits.
Yeah, and salute to Kenny Gainwell for having a great game over there in Dublin. I know there's been some talk about maybe he should be running back one. I think at least he earned himself some more carries. While we're on offense, let's bring up Broderick Jones, who is a major point of disappointment in weeks 1 and week 2, but we haven't been saying his name on the last couple of weeks on the podcast because there isn't this litany of video circulating on social of him getting blown by. And the PFF numbers match up with it. Here's a Daniel Valente tweeting: first 2 games, 4 sacks, 7 pressures, last 2, 0 sacks, only 3 pressures allowed. And I think your eyes, line up with that. That's another one of the reasons Steelers were so much more successful against the Vikings.
So one thing we have to talk about is that even when he was getting raked over the coals and he was basically a turnstile and Aaron Rodgers is on witness protection, watch out stuff, like, look out. What was the one, who was the guy? Who was the quarterback? Look out! Run! The stuff you see on tape from week to week is, even the best players, even pros can be in a situation where they're literally telling their quarterback to run for their life. The one thing we have to give Broderick Jones credit for before we unpack any of this stuff is he never stopped hustling. He never stopped running to the end of the play, high-fiving his teammates, being a good voice on the huddle or in the huddle on the sidelines. And that paid off last week, recovering the fumble. So what you never questioned was the effort. What you never questioned was the attitude. What you questioned was, will you dance? Like we were just talking about,
talent.
Will you use your damn hands, right? And so talent existing gives you time, buys you time for technique to take hold. And right now it's starting to take place. And, hashtag Roman Wilson season may never happen, but Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, they have to become bookends. They have to become linchpins with Zach Frazier of what this team is going to be going forward. Mason McCormick cannot be the best guy of the last couple of draft classes when you're talking about 2 1s and a 2 and what the future holds for the black and gold.
What's interesting is you dive into the numbers and the in-depth PFF numbers, don't show that he was more efficient against Minnesota than he was against New England and Seattle, but the guys weren't getting home, or they weren't getting the pressures, to get counted up and tallied. But, maybe what that tells me is Aaron Rodgers is figuring out what Broderick Jones can and can't do and what he's got to do in order to mitigate that, if it's getting the ball out quicker, and probably Arthur Smith figuring out some stuff as well. The team said several times during the month of September, hey, we're getting acclimated to everything and integrating some new players. And at times I was skeptical. But as we move into October now, I think, at least with how week 4 went, I think it was actually a credible message.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing when you go back and you think about like the great offenses. It's usually one of two things. It's Peyton Manning saying, Marvin Harrison goes this way, Reggie Wayne goes this way. We run these concepts and we're going to out execute you. They really only ran a handful of plays. And the other side of it is how much can we move? How many guys can move? How many formations? Even if you're only running a handful of plays, it's how many different ways can we show you this scheme? How can we gamify you, right? To put our guys almost like in that arena football subset where they're almost moving forward, right, at the snap, or at the very least putting you in peril based on their positioning and widening of gaps or shrinking of gaps. And what's really interesting about what did they have 19, 20 snaps with Spencer Anderson, 6 offensive linemen, and then with Darnell Washington in there as well. I mean, that's 7 offensive linemen. It just happens to be that one of them's all 300 pounds and he can also go murk you either in the seam or in the red zone. So there was a lot of really interesting scheme specific stuff. And the other point is do you want to do this now or you want to wait to talk about Aaron Rodgers? Because PFF is a nice tool. It's one component, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. Like you have to trust your eyes. You have to look at the film and you have to say, how did this guy affect the game? Not just did he win or lose, because we don't know. We can assume only so much. But when we're living in a world where Aaron Rodgers is ranked behind some of the guys that he's ranked behind by that same crew, and there's 32 teams, and he's 37th in the league, you can miss me with some of the metrics.
I think some of these metrics don't do a great job of qualifying what a game manager can do for you, right? I think that's an intangible component of we're not going to risk the ball until we have to. Like I think Jalen Hurts has had to risk the ball for 1 quarter, and that was against the Rams, and they put up 21 points and come back and win the game, right? So how do you measure what Jalen Hurts is doing when he makes sure that the offense isn't going to lose you the game between now and the 4th quarter? And I think a lot of that is to what Aaron Rodgers has done in Pittsburgh. I guess it's more a measurement of your offensive success. It's not really a measurement of how the quarterback specifically is doing all of the things when you look at Pro Football Focus and their score on the quarterback. It's not going to give you how good is the guy. It's going to be a post-action report of the production that your offense has done with him at the helm. And it's just like, how do you get in more nuanced and establish what those are and not punish a guy? Yeah, I mean, you can't, because ultimately it's a predictive model. What they use is a predictive model when we look at per play efficiency for establishing models of who's most likely to win games and how much are they going to score. Like all of this stuff is real, what they do. And I think PFF gets a bad name because, people don't understand like what Micah Parsons did was win his matchup again and again and again and again and again. But on the other side, you had one of the best coaching staffs with one of the best quarterbacks and wide receivers and tight ends that were getting open. Micah's just one component of it. But if you let Dak hold the ball 3 more times or just 3 more ticks a few times, Micah Parsons has 3 or 4 sacks in this game. There's nothing. He was destroying his guy no matter where they moved him. Micah's winning most of the time. The ball's out, though, right? So does that mean Micah had a bad game? No, it means the offense that he was playing against had a great game.
Yeah, what you're talking about is nuance, right? And perspective. And
computers aren't good at that.
That's why I try to give it its proper due. Like you talk about the predictive modeling and there is statistical relevance. What I'm talking about, since you mentioned Jalen Hurts, I think it's like the 2nd play of the Super Bowl. Devontae Smith runs a little corner route, and by pre-snap alignment, he's open. At the bottom, the very, very, very earliest point that Jalen Hurts could throw the ball, he's wide open. Jalen Hurts pump fakes for no reason. Jalen Hurts rolls out also for no reason. And ends up throwing a sideline laser cannon rocket ball. It's a completion to Devontae Smith. And I think it's even like a first down. And everyone's really excited and it looks really cool. Here goes Jalen Hurts. Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. it's a minus if you're a quarterback coach or an OC grading it because he doesn't read well pre-snap or he just misses it, doesn't trust it. He doesn't make the throw and execute at the bottom of his drop based on what the pre-snap read proved in the post-snap that didn't change. In fact, it only made your guy come more clean. And then he doesn't trust his protection and moves. And then he makes the catch way more difficult than it has to be, to the point where he puts his receiver in harm's way. So it's a catch. It's a first down play. All the EPA and all the other things don't see pre-snap, wide open, drop, pump fake, roll for no reason, way tight window throw basically is what it becomes. And he did that with tremendous intentionality because that's how he plays the game. And Aaron Rodgers is literally the exact opposite of that. And if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, stan, homer, hater, wherever you are on the spectrum, the absolute truth of 8 is that right now he's playing pretty damn great.
He is, man. He is playing good. He's a top 10 quarterback, no doubt about it. And the numbers just can't grasp how good he is, and it's funny to look out into the sports media because I feel like so many of these talking heads and these bloggers are using PFF as their basis for reality.
It determines awards.
Yes.
It's not their reality. It's the NFL's reality.
That's okay. That's fair. But the crazy thing is they don't want to admit it. I'm a ball knower. I'm not just a guy that looks up analytics, because it takes doing that as your sole job 60 hours a week with multiple people to have as good a level of understanding as PFF. So when I see media members like dogging PFF, what I usually believe is there's a person that has a premium account but is ashamed to admit it.
It's a tool. And what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, how do I want to use this tool? Am I going to be, and I'm going to say it, and this is going to piss some people off, but am I going to be lazy because this is how the NFL determines awards and this is what the NFL says is the end all? Or am I going to use this as a tool, and am I going to do some additional work myself? Am I going to go say, Aaron Rodgers is 3-1. Aaron Rodgers is this completion percentage, this yards per attempt, this touchdown percentage, this red zone success rate. What do those numbers say? What do they not say? What do I think based on what my eyes can tell and how I understand coverage and covering this team and what they want to do and how they attack other schemes? There is no fucking way that you can say Aaron Rodgers is the 37th rated quarterback in the NFL right now. Like that is beyond a slap in the face. Like that is, I don't care what the spreadsheet says. Like you cannot say Jake Browning, Tua Tagovailoa, Carson Wentz, I think Jackson, the rookie, Jackson Dart, name just completely ran out of my head, is one spot behind him. You're telling me there's 4 quarterbacks? How much? The math doesn't math. There's 4 quarterbacks who aren't even starting for their team right now because there's only 32 teams. So if he's 37, we're talking about there's 37. So there's every starting quarterback plus 4 backups are better than Aaron Rodgers. Like that's the kind of stuff that turns people off and makes them just want to shitbag the whole thing, because that is such an egregious bad thing.
Yeah.
To put out into the world that you go, well, why would I believe anything else they say?
Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to base the evaluation on though? Because you're not getting first downs. They call it the money down for a reason. Chunk plays are predictive of results. Like that's to PFF's defense. What else are you going to do?
So
I would put out a disclaimer.
Here's how I'm going to answer the question. Jake Browning has been cut in this league. Jake Browning is barely an NFL clipboard holding. He's barely an end of roster guy. He's a great dude and he's done everything that he's been asked of and more. He has played the quarterback position better than his talent, has an interesting offensive mind, has some pretty damn good weapons. He's a guy who barely belongs in the league. And not only are you saying he's 5 spots better than Aaron Rodgers, a 4-time MVP, you're saying that a guy that we all love because he Gronk spiked his helmet and the ear pads went sideways, you never should have bleeping cut me, and you want to root for this guy, is objectively better than Aaron Rodgers putting up the numbers that he's put up, getting motorboated, waterboarded, at least one, if not both of those at the same time in a start, when the worst thing Aaron Rodgers has done is get rid of the ball on time and on target. Like, what are we talking about? Like,
yeah, I guess it's just Browning. Like all the throws for less than an air yard, throwing short of the sticks, few big time throws. Like, I think what you said was it's a tool, and the tool should not give you final conclusions. It should open up your curiosity. Like,
absolutely.
For example, should PFF, give you a very significant bonus if in the last 8 minutes of games you suddenly bring your offense to life? And it becomes,
because it's just data.
Yeah. Well, maybe they should, because what you're talking about is just raw data that's sort of neutral on what time and place this happens at. I'm going to give you how many air yards and all this stuff. Just giving the data isn't enough to capture the winning essence of what it takes on Sundays in the NFL.
Okay, so I love that essence, right? Essence. You talk about objective, subjective, like essence, perspective, all these fun little nuanced things in between. If Jake Browning, for example, Tua Tagovailoa, Carson, with anybody except for Bo Nix that is ahead of Rodgers with immediacy, if they were in Pittsburgh, Mason Rudolph would start over them. That's what I'm talking about. Is there has to be, you talk like ball knower, and you talk about just evaluating positions and schemes and guys that you can just drop in and do things. That's what I'm talking about. Like, if you just look at it and you say average yard per target, average yard per completion, this, that, and the other, and there's no context to how Mike Tomlin calls a game and wants it called, how Artie Smith is calling a game and doing that under Mike Tomlin's tutelage, and how bad the offensive line was, and all the other things, no wide receiver too. And you're going to sit there and go, Aaron Rodgers, a 37th ranked quarterback, when clutch plays, when completion percentage, when 3-1. Like, I think there has to be, sitting here in a world where we're talking about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens being a top 10 team when they're about to be 1-5 and have no business being in the conversation because the dudes that you want to be a part of the conversation are either on IR or at the very least not on the field. You have to be able to subjectively remove yourself from the raw data and say, come on, man, can we just knock it off?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's what you do on the human side of it. Like, you take all the data in, but I think another interesting question for you would be, it makes you think about how good this team really is at 3-1. They're leading the division. Do you feel like they're going to win the North? Are they a Super Bowl contender? Right? They're one of the 8 division leading teams across the NFL, and I guess every other one of them except Indianapolis looks pretty legit. Is this a clutch factor? Like, hey, guess what? You get into games against guys like Drake May and Justin Fields, and you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and they have a guy like Carson Wentz. You're going to find yourself on the winning end of plays, whether that's your defense being able to just suddenly stop Fields, May, and Wentz after struggling against them in multiple drives leading up to these fourth quarter moments. Boom, you're getting big stops, and Aaron Rodgers is making the plays happen. Like, what's the explanation for why this team is 3-1 with the quarterback having the 37th best, production from his position, just objectively?
Well, and this is where these conversations get really fun, because data-wise, it's like Sam Darnold is and has been inarguably a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. He also beat him head-to-head. Here's what I know about Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't see ghosts when things get close. So whatever you're going to say about Sam Darnold, because there's film out there with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson doing freaking jumping jacks, schemed wide open in gotta-have-it moments, and Sam Darnold shit the bed. They peed down his pants, whatever you want to throw into the mix. Like, he was awful at the end. And he was a guy who, 2/3, 3/4, 4/5, 5/6, like really all the way to the end. We were talking about him in the MVP conversation. If he pulls the trigger a couple of times, who knows? He's got another trophy on his mantle. And the Vikings might win a Super Bowl. He might have taken less than the $100 million he got to go to Seattle just to stay home. Change one thing, change everything. And the thing about Aaron Rodgers is you believe when the ball is in his hands, he can have that kind of impact.
He can. All right. And we're looking forward to having an impact with you every time we upload here on the Knoll Road. If you're enjoying the content, please hit the like. It helps us get distribution. Leave a comment down below if you'd like to share your thoughts on this topic, brothers.
Subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe. Okay. I'll buy you beer. Next time I see, I promise you I'll buy you a beer if you just reach down.
Use the D-pad to navigate over and hit the little button and sign up, because then you'll get everything that we do. And the more you do, the more we can do for you. Help us get to where we want to go. So this is really all we want to do.
It was crazy to find out like half the audience is watching on a smart TV. I didn't realize watching YouTube on the TV had become so popular. But you got to hit the menu button and then go find the like and the sub and all that. But anyway, YouTube wants to see that you're engaging and all that. So if you do like us, that'd be sweet. Okay, till next time, we'll see you on the Knoll Road.